Hello and welcome back to Market Vibes by CA Sri Lanka. I'm your host 𝗨𝗽𝗱𝗀𝗀𝘀 and here's your monthly economic update for October 2025. Looking first at inflation. Inflation rose to 2.1% in October versus the 1.5% we saw in September 2025. Inflation on a month-on-month basis picked up amid higher prices in both the food and non-food categories. Looking at interest rates, the Treasury bill rates remained broadly unchanged at around 8.04%, while the lending rates did see an uptick of 26 bps, with the average weighted prime lending rate ending at 8.31% at the end of October. Further, the 𝗟𝗡𝗃𝗓 has risen a further 11 bps in November so far. The average weighted deposit rate remained broadly unchanged at 6.8%. The credit to private sector continues to improve on a year-on-year basis, with credit disbursed to the private sector growing 22% in September 2025 compared to last year. Accordingly, credit to the private sector reached 9.5 trillion rupees by the end of September 2025 as consumption and investments picked up in the current low interest rate environment. Looking at the exchange rate, the 𝗟 weakened slightly during October and this continued to weaken in November so far as well. Accordingly, the 𝗟 depreciated by 0.6% against the USD in October 2025 to end the month at 304.4 rupees to the US dollar. So far in November, the 𝗟 trades at 305.2 rupees to the greenback on 14th November 2025. Gross official reserves recorded a decline on a year-on-year basis of 4% to $6.2 billion, whilst on a month-on-month basis, it was a marginal decline. The central bank, however, remained a net buyer of foreign currency from the market with net purchases of $46 million during the month of October. Looking at external trade, we saw exports decline by 11% on a month-on-month basis, but grew 13% year-over-year to $1.1 billion. The month-on-month decline was driven mainly by the textiles and garments exports, which declined by 16%, while the year-on-year growth was mainly driven by tea, which grew 17%, and coconut-related exports, which grew by 64%. Meanwhile, imports grew by 21% on a month-on-month basis and 24% on a year-over-year basis to $2 billion, driven by the import of personal vehicles, which amounted to $228 million in September. The trade deficit widened by 120% on a month-on-month basis and 44% on a year-on-year basis to $910 million. Looking at tourist arrivals, this improved by 22% in October compared to the previous year. In October 2025, the number of tourists arriving in the country was recorded at 165,193 persons. So far, during the first 12 days of November, 82,270 persons arrived in the island as tourists. The average daily arrivals stood around 5,300 persons in October, but has picked up to 6,800 levels so far in November with the commencement of the peak winter season. Looking at worker remittances, this grew by 21% on a year-on-year basis to $712 million in October 2025. This number is significantly higher than the amounts that we've seen over the past 3 to 4 years. Looking at capital markets, the all-share price index was up 5% in October, with the positive momentum and sentiment at the Colombo Stock Exchange continuing. The market has gained a further 3% as of 13th November 2025. Blue chips, including banks, conglomerates, and consumer names, were among the top contributors to market turnover during October 2025. In terms of market multiples, the CSE traded at 10.1 times trailing 12-month price to earnings ratio, 1.5 times price to book ratio as of 31st October. Meanwhile, the market dividend yield was at 2.4% based on data published by the Colombo Stock Exchange. And with that, we will wrap up this month's Market Vibe session. Thank you.